Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Marty on the beat. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty on
Good morning, Rockingham. It's Mike Smith with Marty Gallagher. Welcome to the feed. It's February 16th, 2022. Coming up toward the end of winter, right?
Hope so.
Yeah, it looks like sugaring season should start the next week. I see that it's going to be warm during the day and cold at night, so I'm hoping that gets going. We're here today with Deb Fox. We're going to be talking about tourism in Vermont and tourism in Bellows Falls and how that's impacted by a variety of different things. And but first, Marty with local events.
Yeah, so this week, the movie coming to the Bellows Falls Opera House, which will start on Friday the 18th, is Uncharted. I don't know much about it. I do know Mark Wahlberg's in it, so well, then you might as well just go,
Looks
right?
like a good action adventure.
Yeah, they didn't have a lot of info on it, so I just found it. Classic movie tonight, though. Know a lot about that. Stop Making Sense. It's sponsored by Edward Jones, and it just seems like an apropos movie for for
right
this
now,
time
huh?
this time frame right now. $6 to get in. Movie starts at 7. And on Saturday, March 12th, the Opera House is hosting The Logger. He's coming down as Rusty Deweese. The Logger is his alter ego. He's described as blue-collar comedy meets Prairie Home Companion. So tickets are available on the Opera House's website, or you can go to the bookstore. And so March is a perfect time to get out and do
Yeah.
something fun.
And just as an aside, I've talked to people who say, well, with COVID and everything, I'm really uncomfortable getting out and going to the movies. But you should really go to the Opera House. There's so much room to spread out that you don't have to be within 12 feet of anyone. I mean, there's plenty of room. People spread out. The crowds aren't that big, but you get to see a great movie at a reduced price. And so I would highly recommend it, especially on a Sunday afternoon when it's raining or something like that, or snowing or cold.
I was just recommended in general, and you're right. We're lucky that we don't have one of those tiny little
those little
mini theater things. We have a full-fledged opera house with plenty of room for folks to social distance.
I mean, it's really nice. You spread out. I've been a few times since they've opened again, and there's no. I don't think there's much COVID risk there. Anyway, okay, Marty.
That was my token COVID cough. No, I don't know. And so one of the things that's happening, and not tonight in the Opera House, but in the lower theater, is the Cannabis Forum. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about. So do you want to get started on that?
Yeah, well, I want to introduce Deb and talk a little bit about the forum. Tonight is about, they're calling it Cannabis Conversations, and it's the idea of having retail cannabis sales in local municipalities, and it's on the ballot for Rockingham. And tonight's forum is basically to get voters informed as to what exactly does the act say, what might be the impact politically and economically in the town, and then sort of an idea of talking with people who might do business as in the cannabis realm. What would that look like, and who would that attract as people to come in, and sort of how would that be, and as opposed to the stereotypes of would it be a bunch of hippies in '69 Volkswagens rolling in?
Oh, come on.
We just have an event around once a year. We could have a little 60s carnival.
Throwback 60s, yes. Anyway, I'm Mr. Natural.
Mike digresses.
Trucking through town, and anyway, all right. So, but and that's one of the reasons we have Deb here today, is we wanted to talk about sort of not just the cannabis, but things, because one of the things that people want to do in Bellows Falls is attract tourists, and I think that's a universal want. I don't think there's anybody in town that says we don't want to have any tourists, because it's good for the businesses, it's good for the town, and we find that people who do come to Bellows Falls and see it a lot of them stay.
Oh,
I
sure.
mean, yeah, it's just amazing. But Deb, I'll
right,
turn it
well.
over to you.
Well, I'm glad that this is happening tonight because I think it's really important to get the information out there. Before I forget this, I will have voter registration there tonight,
Oh, good.
and also on Saturday. So if there's anyone who's not registered to vote, come on over and do that. I think it's really important to not only be registered for this, but there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So I'm excited about this. What's getting written up as the Act 164 and the retail cannabis and cannabis in Vermont, it gets confusing. I mean, anytime you get, that kind of writing involved, it's really confusing.
It's very
I have
confusing.
not been through the whole act, but it's my understanding there are going to be a bunch of different licenses that are going to come out, whether it's large grower, small grower, transporters. They're like six or
Right,
seven
right.
different, and they're limited to how many they're handing out. So that's going to be important, I think, tonight to go over. And just find out the different things that are happening. Here's the three, the shopper, here's Springfield, here's Chester, still doing the cannabis. Rockingham prepares for the town meeting. So there's a lot of talk right now, and I think a lot of the different, the villages are actually looking at this differently. There's some that just don't want it.
Yeah,
They just don't
it
want
seems that
anything to
way.
do with that. They don't want to take advantage of any tax benefit or the people coming in. I can say that since running my Vermont 420 tours, the people that I'm attracting are, business people. They're our age. They're not teenagers coming in trying to get, free weed or, whatever. When I do the 420 tours, it's not only about marijuana and cannabis and CBD. It is about coming into Bellows Falls. And like you mentioned, there are a lot of people in Vermont or people who travel from Connecticut that have homes in Ludlow or whatnot. And when they've come in for my tours, they're like, oh my gosh, we just never knew this was
Yeah.
here,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you're bypassing it, either, just going
Just the way
through
the interstate's set up.
quickly or, or the interstate. So I think it's important to bring those folks in, and the groups that I've had come in, just the way Bellows Falls is set up and the people that we have here, it's just been phenomenal. We take a walk down to the fish ladder when it's open. We go to see Chris Sherwin, over at 33 Bridge with his glass blowing and have demos. They have time to, spend some money downtown. We have lunch downtown, so we take advantage of, supporting the local businesses as much as possible. So I think it's a good thing. I think there's still, items that we need to kind of keep in check. Obviously, Deb Whitkus is going to be there tonight talking about, how we deal with this on the younger level and how we educate.
Yeah.
And I think education is not only those programs that are set in place, but I was watching a few episodes of Blue Bloods, which is the one with Tom Selleck
Yes, yeah.
and whatnot, and their cannabis conversation in one of the episodes is around the dinner table. So I don't think it's educating the youth, but it's also educating the parents and how we talk about it.
True.
My parents never talked about it. It was readily available. We didn't have programs like
Right,
Deb
right,
has
right.
for that kind of education, and so we didn't have that structure. But I think it's really important to be able to sit around the family table for dinner, which is hard to make happen anyway with the way our lifestyles are. But I think it's just really important to keep that open and keep the conversation open and let your kids know that it's okay to talk about. I think a lot of kids are just scared to go home. I know I wouldn't have talked to my parents about it back in the day. It was, amongst friends in school or whatnot, but it's important. The other thing I think is important with the cannabis discussion is there are consequences. The other episode of Blue Bloods was one of their very good detectives had gone to Colorado for a weekend to go see some friends, and of course he tried marijuana, and when he came back he was drug tested.
Oh.
And so if you're planning on going into that kind of field, you have to make a choice.
Yes, that's
Is
true.
it more important to have that high when you want to have it? And a lot of that is medical too. I don't want to discard the fact that people use it for medical reasons as well as recreational. But I think that you've got to understand if you're going into that kind of work and you're getting drug tested or you're in a random pool, then don't don't take that chance
Right.
and lose a
Yeah.
really good job that you might have. So those are just things to think about.
Yeah. So how did you, because you used to be president of the chamber, right? And then-
Executive director.
Executive director, sorry.
That's okay.
But you've sort of had a journey as far as tourism in Vermont, and I don't know what, like almost you're the jack of all trades of, railroads, cannabis, several other things we've talked about. And it's like, wow.
Well, that connection kind of came into play when I moved back to Vermont and working for Vermont Rail System, and then that's just tourism in itself. After getting done with Vermont Rail and getting into the tour guiding is kind of where I came up with the idea for the Vermont 420 tours. I was seeing some other states doing it. I had been out to Colorado, and not that they were doing tours at the time, but they were taking people from dispensary to dispensary. I still do a lot of Road Scholar programs for a company here in Vermont called Sugar Tours. And that's just a fun thing. It's just great to bring people in, talk about Vermont and everything we have to offer. And again, that's why in my Vermont 420 tours, it's not only about smoking weed and, we have that higher etiquette book from the Emily Post Institute, which is a pretty neat book to read through. But I think that, just those people coming in, just, make a big difference, and they want to come back when they see what we've got to offer.
Right.
I think it's important, you talked about education, and I think it's important to point out, if anyone's planning on coming to the event tonight, that it is meant to be educational. It's meant to be informative. It's not meant to be a debate on the pros and the cons, but it is meant to give you information so that you can vote, with education behind it, and not, myths or something you heard from your neighbor down the street, that type of thing, but to give really good education.
Right.
I think that's important. And I guess my next question would be, so what do you see? I mean, I think we have a wonderful downtown. I think that we market well, but what do you think we're missing in getting tours to Bells Falls?
Well, I think that, southern Vermont has always been, kind of a region that, people come when we have tour buses come up, they're coming up 91, but they're not necessarily, they stop in Guilford for the bathroom break, and then they're headed to Stowe or to Woodstock and places like that. And I think it's really just getting the word out, because again, I don't think that a lot of tour companies, and they're kind of stuck in this mentality that, okay, we go from here to here to here, and they don't really try to generate new business. There are a few things that are necessary for those groups to come in. They need a place to drop off that's easily accessible to downtown. They need the restrooms. And we've got that. We've got that at the train station. It's walkable to the downtown area. The eating establishments are a little on the
a little on the low
difficult
side.
To find a place that is going to feed 55 people all at once, we just don't have that. We do have, however, and I do have a few of the Road Scholar groups that come in for the Railroads of New England tour. That stop down at the train station. They do their bathroom break. I do a historical walk, usually about 20 minutes or so, while the group leader goes up and gets lunches from Moondog.
Oh, that's good.
So they're box lunches that come down. So that we're feeding them that way, but there's really no sit down. And the other thing is a hotel. We just don't have a place to house people.
Yeah.
So the difficult thing too, and other towns have this as well. Manchester, Vermont is a great example. They've got some great hotels, but they're not, for the groups that are coming in, they're not necessarily walkable to shopping and whatnot.
Right.
So that becomes a little more difficult. So we're not the only ones that are, in this. Woodstock, the same thing. I mean, the bus groups are not going to the Woodstock Inn to stay overnight because of the price.
Yeah.
And I think, my personal opinion, and I grew up in the Woodstock area, Bellows Falls has it going right now, even compared to Woodstock. Now Woodstock again has always been kind of coined that quaint little town. Oh, if you go to Vermont, you got to go to Woodstock. Yeah. But there's no reason. Hey, you're going to Vermont, you got to go to Bellows Falls.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I think part of that is creating that. I don't want to call it boutique, but that sort of idea that it's a boutique, it's a destination that you're going to go and see some unique things,
right,
and have some unique experiences that are going to be, they're going to be cool, and that's hard to do. And I don't know that because I don't know that, and I'm trying not to step on toes, but there's a feeling in town that development means getting a factory in.
Right.
Instead of development means getting another art gallery or a restaurant
Right.
or some place where people could stay. And maybe there's lower hanging fruit than getting a big manufacturing company that's gonna employ 350 people.
Well, that's what I was just thinking too when you were talking is all of those things are opportunities.
Absolutely.
There's an opportunity to figure out where could we build a small, not a huge hotel, but a hotel that could accommodate a smaller group. Or then,
Yeah.
and then when you have a smaller hotel, it's easier to fill. Where is there a space? Because right now, there really isn't even a space in town I can think of where a new restaurant could go in that could really accommodate that many
it.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably
So-
not.
So I think there's opportunities. We have to look at maybe some underutilized spaces.
Right.
I know there was talk. I don't know if you attended. There was some groups that were talking about like town planning, and one of the ideas was developing the island. Were you in on that? And
Not actively. no.
yeah, and they had a whole plan with like creating like a walk along the river. I believe it entailed taking some land from the railroad or acquiring some land for the railroad and having that and that would be a space down there where you could probably put a restaurant in or something
Yeah,
about
yeah.
redeveloping that area.
Right.
And
And
then
that's
the train
on the-
station being integrally part of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of the plan right now. I mean, with
Yeah.
the grants coming up and the cleanup, hopefully we'll see a nice little pub or restaurant or something down there that will kind
That
of
would
tie
be
that
great,
together. Yeah, so I think there's a lot that, again, a lot of opportunities. I think even, as places around here are looking for small grow facilities, that's another opportunity
Yeah.
for some of that vacant property right now to house, the small grower and really build on that, so.
Right.
So one of the things that you said earlier, which might be good for people to know regarding voting, is that even if it passes in a town, doesn't mean the town's gonna get the licensing, right? There's only 10,
Correct.
you said there's only 10 retail licenses within
Yeah,
the
they're
state.
very limited with growing, and they go, I believe, by the growing and how many square feet you're planning on
Yeah.
having. And then there's just gonna be a handful of, retail dispensaries. I'm afraid that, well, not afraid, but I'm pretty sure that, the southern Vermont, there's probably gonna be something in Brattleboro. I don't know that, we're gonna have to be pretty strong in,
Right.
if we want that
Right.
retail establishment here. And making a point of getting that information to the state and to the control board that,
Exactly.
that is something that we're up for.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that. I think people think it's like like it's a wide open thing. It's not like the Wild West where you can
Right.
just
Anyone and their brother can
yeah,
open up shop.
No, it's
right.
like once the town decides that you can do it, then you're in the competition.
Right,
But if your town decides not to do it, you're not even in the competition.
Right.
Then it's not going to happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know that a while back I had called, when we've had this discussion before, I called and then I sat in the parking lot for a while at the 253 pharmacy down in Massachusetts.
Mhm.
And it amazed me how many cars from Vermont came in there. Now, here at Stay in Bounds, this is the thing they hand out, which tells you can't bring it back across state lines, but you know darn well that's happening, right? And I ended up asking them, and about a third of their business right now is from,
That doesn't
Out of
surprise
state.
me at all.
And from
Having
Vermont.
done my own research,
yeah,
the same way. It was
Yeah.
when I was there. It was like all the cars were.
Oh,
from
yeah,
Vermont.
yeah.
And it's like that. It's not. Yeah, that's one of the other things. Is like not voting it in is not going to stop it.
right.
It's like that horse is out of the barn. The ship has sailed.
Yeah.
The train has left the station.
Yeah.
And anybody that wants, from kids to adult, they can get it.
Oh,
And it's
yeah,
not like
yeah.
this is somehow restricting
No, not at all.
their access.
And if we compare this to the liquor laws, I happen to think liquor is a whole lot worse than what you're going to find people using marijuana and the effects of marijuana. I saw on Facebook or heard somewhere, yeah, you put 5 people in a bar and have them drink, they're going to start a fight. You put 5 people in a room and they smoke and they want to start a band. You know, it's very, very different, you know, and you can see it at the bars, you know. I've been there, done that, and,
Yeah.
you know, you can
Yep.
see how it affects
Yeah.
a whole lot differently. So,
Yeah.
you know, again, I do want to impress, though, upon the fact that it does need education and we do need to
And-
keep our kids safe.
And I guess one of the things that I think it's maybe ironic about this thing is that if they legalize the sale and if they get the tax revenue, then they will be funding for education. Otherwise, there
Right,
won't be.
Right,
It-
and I think that's one of the things that Deb Whitkus, and I'm not real clear on why some of the other towns have opted out of the local tax, because it is eventually going to benefit
Yeah.
them. It was kind of explained to me that local tax will still go to the state and then be used for whatever
Distributed
programs
for
they
programs,
feel
right.
appropriate. So,
Yeah, but, you know, it's sort of like, if you really want the kids to be educated about it, then maybe you should have the retail sales legalized so
Right,
that you
right.
can,
and
you
you
know,
know,
do that.
right now with everything that you would get on the streets and the fentanyl and all of that, I would think that if you are a parent and you know your kids are using, you'd be more or feel safer if they were getting it from a controlled area versus just off
Right,
the
controlled
street.
and regulated, and I
Right.
think that's the key, is it's not like you said, it's not the Wild West.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hoops that have to be,
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to be gone through, and then I'm guessing a lot of reporting and a lot of accountability.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And even the labs that are gonna have to, you know, test the product and make sure they're in the right range of percent. It's gonna open up a lot of opportunity, I think, and not only for that retail and the growers, but I don't know if you've looked to see what bud tenders make an hour for
No.
clipping
Really?
and trimming and
Oh,
stuff.
really?
That's $25-30 an hour.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
See, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
Those are the things you know. It's the
Another new career for Mike.
Yes. Bud tender.
You can be a bud tender, you can be a grower, you can,
Yeah.
so there's a lot
See, I
involved,
didn't
you
even.
know.
Ever, that's the first I've ever heard that.
Yeah.
When you said it, I was thinking, is it like a bartender that sort
I
of?
thought so too. I was
decides
like, yeah,
which-
that's what I was
like
thinking.
you try a little of this and a little of that, like a.
A mix,
what's the person who
that's a
makes,
mixologist.
yeah,
maybe.
right.
mixologist.
Cannabis mixologist.
So there's a lot to learn from this. You know, as we can see, it's going to happen. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So we just have to figure out what makes best sense for us here in this community.
It's interesting to me, it just popped into my head that we're doing this in the 20s, because wasn't the 20s the big
Yeah, the
year of
20s.
alcohol and
Yeah,
prohibition
yeah,
and
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and they were probably having some of the same
Same
discussions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not to totally change the subject, but would you be willing to share anything about the diner and
Sure.
what's happening there? 'Cause that's a
So
big. How much time do we have?
I think we're probably at about 2 to 3 minutes,
Okay.
I'm guessing.
so the diner, I am in contract to purchase.
Okay.
I have done the my due diligence with an inspection last week. So just trying to work on financing and how I'm going to raise money. I'd like to. I don't know if it's going to be through a GoFundMe yet or not, but the diner itself, I love the fact that, and the reason I'm getting more involved with that, because it's a historic
It really
piece
is. Yeah.
and it's within the historical district of Bellows Falls. And I want to be a part of that. So
Yeah.
my involvement right now is to buy the diner and get someone to operate it.
Yeah.
So if anyone's watching that's interested in
looking
being an
for the-
operator, let me know.
Yeah.
I have had quite a bit of interest in that.
Yeah.
And depending on, you know, some people just want to do a dinner, some people, you know, want to do the
Right.
breakfast, lunch. I do want to keep it a diner. I will still do special events there in the evenings, which I'm hoping that will be my part of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
business part of it. Not only the Vermont 420 tours, but I have a friend who's the ambassador of absinthe. You know what absinthe is? The
Yes, I
liquor, yeah,
do.
yeah. And he's willing to come in and do a whole demonstration around that. And we could have food pairings
Yeah, yeah.
with that.
See,
kind
that's
of night.
another amazing idea that
Yeah.
would be great. Would attract people. to
Right,
Bellows
right.
Falls. People
You know,
aren't doing that.
Diner and a movie night
Yeah.
kind of thing. I've thought about, you know, just having specialty chefs come in
Mhm.
and do a night. So I'm trying to, the difficult thing with the diner is you've got 5 booths of 4, and then you've got
Yeah.
your seating at the
Right.
at the counter.
Economically, it's
So
difficult.
it's a little difficult in doing the business plans. You wanted, well, you got to turn the people over in a certain amount of time and whatnot. But and I think that's why those evening events will be nice, because we'll be more relaxed. We'll have the time to really enjoy food and history.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'll probably do a night called Dining by Rail, which goes back to the
Neat.
original Dining by Rail cookbook
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing.
Oh, sweet.
So again, it's that educational component and the fun component of
Great.
reading and all of that.
It's so nice having someone who's thinking outside the box and not saying, well, this has to be a breakfast lunch
Right,
Right.
place, and
Right.
not being able to make it because it just won't.
because that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to. I think you have to now, sort
Yeah,
of with
you have to be
smaller
very
restaurants.
I think so
you
too,
do.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
1
Well, I
minute.
think we're down to 1 minute.
1 minute.
I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank
Deb. I
you so
hope you'll
much.
come
I always
again.
appreciate it.
And maybe talk a little bit after we go through these forums and stuff, and maybe talk about the ideas that you have
Right.
about how this might work. I hope people tune in tonight, and thank you, Mari.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
All right,
Thank you.
see
Bye,
you.
community.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Mike.